Okay, welcome to another Rubberstamp show and tell. This is a publication called Stamp Stories, and it is from summer 1996, issue 9, volume 3. As we can see right here from the maple leaf, we can deduce that it's a Canadian publication, and it is. I didn't subscribe to this, but I have one or two copies of this. And as I looked in here, this is a request for a media release from the publisher, Cythia Forget, and a media request is, kind of a request for information if a company is releasing new products or something like that, then they can announce it, or, they can decide whether they want to announce it in their publications. And here's an advertisement information sheet here if you want to take out an ad in the magazine. So this is typically what you would see as a manufacturer or retail store when it comes to different publications, and of course, distribution and all that certainly comes into play in terms of the cost of things like that. But you see Canadian, U.S., and this is a single color publications, so all those types of things are taken into account. So I don't know, discounts and things like that. Usually if you took up a contract for several different ads, then in various publications, then the cost per ad naturally comes down and whatnot. So there was all kinds of things like that. I didn't advertise in too many different publications back in those days. 1996 is really going back quite a ways. But the thing that kind of interested me when I pulled this out and I kind of, thumbed through it a little bit was from the editor. And I think a lot of you that have been stamping for quite some time could relate to this, but this is what I always noticed from Rubber Stampers. And in her first paragraph here, it says, "I'm not the same person who published this zine in the spring. Something very substantial has happened. I have now experienced my very first rubber stamp convention, and I will never be the same again." Okay? So I always felt that a lot of people in 1996, okay, a lot of people got started. Maybe they picked up a stamp or two at a store, or maybe they had a local stamp store that they attended a class with or something like that. If they had a friend that was in stamping, quite often they would take their friend along and, maybe they would take a class with them or something like that. But having done a lot of stamp conventions, starting back around 1987, I noticed that when people went to their first show, it was like you saw people at these shows and I don't know, there was something in their eyes or something. You can tell when it was their first show, and it was just, they kind of experienced the scope and possibilities of the medium by seeing different techniques and the number of different companies and the types of stamps from different companies. Okay, now, I mean, they might have had a store that carried a lot of things, so you would see that, but seeing the actual manufacturers there and seeing all the demonstrations, make and takes, lectures and whatnot that were going on, it was, it almost became something more of a lifestyle, you might say, or something like that, than just kind of a side hobby or something like that. And I don't know, it's just like the editor has mentioned here, something changed about kind of their perspective on the hobby, the pastime, the art. Okay, so that was just kind of interesting to see. And if any of you are watching this and you had kind of a similar experience, maybe you can put in the comment section kind of your memories of that first show that you went to. What show did you go to? Do you remember kind of your thoughts at the time? Was it overwhelming? Was it just the sheer fun of it? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe put some comments in terms of kind of your perspective on the whole thing. And is it like this editor here? Did it change? I don't know, your notion of the entire genre and hobby of stamping. As I go through this, I'm just going to thumb through it, but there's some kind of interesting things in here in relation to the time that this was published. I see some different stores and manufacturers, Magenta here, Marchants. They carried Stampscapes here. Magenta, of course, they've been around for a very long time. A visit to the stamp barn here. I don't know, just different stores, different perspectives from the editor. I don't know if they had guest write. Well, I guess they did have some guest writers here doing some articles right here by different people. Yeah, how to stamp, mount your own stamps. This is by a different writer here. So I guess there was a collective, kind of effort in putting together this scene right here, which is always really cool. I really love these old zines like this. I love all magazines and the big, publisher ones and whatnot, but there's something to be said for kind of, putting something together like this, the entire spirit of putting a new project together like this. And, I mean, here's someone that illustrated these different types of mounts at the time. So when they're talking about how to mount your own stamps, if people bought unmounted stamps before, just the rubber like this, they weren't using it in some kind of unmounted stamp type of system. I don't know. They might do double stick tape or something like that. But chances are, if you were buying it like that, you were putting this on a wood-mounted stamp or a wood mount yourself. You're mounting everything up. Everything is wood mounted at the time, even when you're buying it unmounted. So the cushion, the die, affixing cushion die to wood mount. So there was a market for just plain wood, the double stick cushion, etc. And I don't know, there were different indexing methods. Convention calendars right here. One of the things I was looking for on here was if there were any conventions in Canada at the time. I don't know. I'm kind of curious as to know what conventions were in Canada. If you're a Canadian and if you had a convention near you, maybe you can put it in the comments section where those were, or where the one that you went to was, and kind of the size of it, and when you went to it too. I don't know if there were any conventions pre 2000. I don't know. I have no idea. I never attended any, but I'm sure there must have been some in maybe the larger cities. I don't know. I don't remember. Let's see. Flipping around, I remember this jean pocket stamp right here. You'd stamp it out, and of course, you would affix it to another piece of paper, and then you can put stuff in it, kind of sticking out of the pocket. It was kind of cool. Okay, so the Adventures in Stamping, the Cleveland's Rubberstamp Convention, April 13th and 14th, 1996. This is a whole write-up in terms of the editor's experience there, anticipation, standing in line for 45 minutes there. And that was typical of a convention back in those days. She's talking about the different people that were there. Suze Weinberg, I saw Michelle Abel, Mary Jo McGraw. The Cleveland Adventures in Stamping show, that was one of my favorite conventions to go to. But I didn't attend it for quite a few years because I was already going to a convention in Ohio, which was Stamp Away USA. So I tried not to go to too many conventions in the same area, especially if I had a lot of, or even a few stores that carried the stamps, because if you go to too many conventions, it would kind of hurt the stores that were carrying your line in the general area. But if you did one or two in a certain geographic area that could promote the stores, and you get more people kind of interested in the line, and then they can shop at the stores that were carrying your line. But 45 minutes, yeah, to stand in line for the show. That show was a pretty big one, and it probably got to an even longer wait time before the stores opened. The convention in Carson, California, which was kind of the show for so many years. I would get there 2 or 3 hours before the shows sometimes, before the doors open. Maybe not 3 hours, but 2 hours on Saturday morning. There'd already be a gigantic line out there sometimes. It was so crazy. But dry embossing using templates here. These are the types of things that were kind of the cutting edge of the methodology and techniques of stamping back in the day. A light box, use of a light box, you know, with your dry embossing templates here. Gizmos, wood mounts here. See, they're selling the wood mounts here to mount your rubber stamps on. Your unmounted rubber stamps. Typically, you would see this type of thing in magazines, and they were advertising for the different manufacturers to get your wood mounts from, but they were also probably doing it direct to consumer as well. Okay, pen score right here. See, this is one of those things that I remember in rubber stamping. There weren't a lot of accessories in 1996 for rubber stamping in general, so you saw different things like this, and the pen score, I don't think, it wasn't something that was catered towards rubber stampers at the time because there just wasn't enough of us, you know, from a large manufacturer. I don't know if these things were made domestically or overseas or something like that, but if it's made overseas, then you especially had to have a pretty decent target audience for something like this. But I don't have any pen score here, but it was this foam. Okay, imagine these are just makeup wedges, but imagine this is pen score. There were these foam kind of blocks or whatnot. And I don't know if you remember pen score and you're a longtime stamper. I don't know. Maybe you can put some comments down. And if you actually used it, a lot of people bought this type of thing but never used it. But pen score was something that also came a similar type of tip came on the color box stylus tools, and with both of these types of substance materials, okay, what you would do is you would heat it up. You typically with like a heat gun or something like that. Okay, so you're heating it up. Remember, these aren't pen score, and this is not the tip that you use, but you'd heat it up, not super hot or whatnot, but just enough to where it was fairly malleable. And then what you did was you could take that material as it was still warm, and then you could take you could take it and push it into a rubber stamp. It's not going to melt the rubber stamp or hurt it in any way, but you just held it down, and when it cooled, okay, it came right off. It wasn't sticking to it or anything like that. But you'd get the reverse image imprinted into this, and it was hard, okay? And the material was such that it was kind of a foam material, so you could ink it up, and then you could stamp it out and get that reverse image on your paper and whatnot, okay? I believe the pen scores were squares, okay? I'm not really quite sure. And if you did it on the tips of the color box stylus tools, this wasn't called pen score, but it was similar. You know, you could push it into whatever. Now, they have some examples here that they pressed it into. This one here says Spanish moss. I don't know, does that look like Spanish moss to you? But they pressed it into that. This one was just like a table of sequins, paper clips right here, elastics, so like rubber bands, thumbprints. Oh, they pressed their finger into the pen score. It's kind of interesting. And here's a rubber stamp here that they pressed it into. But these are the impressions that you got. They're kind of like ghostly. They're almost like X-rays, aren't they? And you can tell, see, the material was kind of that foam material, so it wasn't of pure flat material. So I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. I think pen score, there wasn't really a killer application for that, so you didn't really see it used too much. I mean, I guess the reverse impressions of certain rubber stamps might be kind of interesting, but I don't know. I didn't see it used too much, but I always found the material to be pretty interesting. And from, going back to 1996 to the time when Colorbox came out with this Colorbox stylus tools and had that kind of pen score type of tip on here, it was a black one that you heated it up. They must have seen some kind of valid type of potential in it to have it in the Colorbox stylus tools years later. And I think it was because, the general type of crafting target audience is bigger than the rubber stamping audience. So I don't know, maybe that kind of would broaden the appeal to kind of a wider audience. I don't know. But the pen score was out there, and I think A Stamp in the Hand used to carry it. So at their various stores and whatnot, kiosks, and I used to work for A Stamp in the Hand, so I'd see the different types of products like this, and as far as the accessories went, especially. That was in the early '90s, so I don't know. Pen score was around, so I don't know when it was first developed. I don't know if it was in those early '90s. I was kind of still, going over to A Stamp in the Hand and doing things with them because I still had a lot of stamps in their line. I was teaching a lot of classes on how to use the stamps from, that I developed for them from there. So I don't know. I saw that stuff around. But anyways, let's see. Interested in having your stamp art published here. Father's Day types of things. Cover art. A handful of advertisements at the time, and she actually had a questionnaire here, so they can kind of cater their different future publications based on what people wanted to see, which is really cool. It kind of really gives people, I don't know, kind of a stake in their the publications that they're reading and whatnot here. Touch of Canadian Glory here. So, I don't know. Did any of you Canadian stampers subscribe to this? You would have. I don't know when it went to either. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it here. But just a really great little publication here, and pretty cool to see. Especially, I love seeing the kind of the copy printed ones here. You used to be able to go to Kinko's copies or something like that down here, and they would. I forgot what they called this. Was this a saddle stitch or something like this, and running it on their kind of larger single color copy machines and whatnot. And this is how I had one of my first catalogs made. And just printed at a copier store. So, anyway, thanks to the publisher Cythia for doing this type of thing for the rubber stamp industry, and these types of things were gold back in the. Oh, I just noticed this. It was so subtle here, and I didn't. This wasn't by design. I don't even know if you can see it, but that was one of my designs from A Stamp in the Hand company. It's really subtle. There's a kind of a grayscale cloud with sun there. I don't know if you can even see it. I could barely see it, and I'm sitting right in front of it, but there's this really subtle print in there. So, anyways, another rubber stamp show and tell, and I don't know. Like I said, if you have any comments on whatnot about this publication, I don't know, let us know. Okay, thanks for watching.